Hey, thanks for tuning in to Busting Beaks and Chasing Tails. I'm your host, Todd Hogan, joined by my buddy Nathan Overberg. How's it going, Nathan?
Good, Todd. How are you?
Doing all right. Just kind of going to get into a little bit about, we're 3 weeks into deer season here in Missouri, and pretty much the summary of it's just been hot.
It's been absolutely miserable, honestly. We had maybe 1 or 2 days we had a decent cold front push through. I went out and hunted that evening and saw probably 40 plus deer. Saw a bunch of deer. Movement all evening long. Actually, even saw a couple nice, really nice young bucks, and right at last light. But just they kind of caught me off guard a little bit. And also it's nothing I think I would plan on filling my tag with this early in the season, because as you know, here in Missouri, once you shoot a buck, you're done till rifle season starts. So I don't like missing the rut very much.
Put you out of commission for 2 months.
Yeah. So
I know. And in the farm, you have access to a farm there right where we're at, where a friend of mine, I know you know him, he shot a pretty good buck the other day. So, and you had pictures of that one. As it's going right now, I still don't have any good pictures. Every now and then I'll have maybe a questionable buck show up on camera, but I just don't know where they're all at, unless they're still down in the bottoms with all the crops still.
Like I said, I can definitely attest to there's a bunch of deer down there. We were texting earlier today, and the farmer hasn't got any of the crops out, the beans or the corn on, the farms that we hunt out there. So they're still hanging pretty close to it. And again, all of those row crop fields, except for we got one on top of the ridge, which they're hitting pretty good, but is down there by the river. There's a couple springs that feed it. And man, when it's warm like this and they still got food down there, man, it's pretty rough. But I think you might be onto something as well. I think there's a decent possibility that acorn crop might be a little better than what we were originally thinking.
I haven't really got out into the woods. I've kind of just been around my food plot and had a couple times just to get out and put cameras out a little bit, but I haven't just gone traipsing through the woods, try to keep everything quiet. But I need to go look at some white oaks, because I'm just not seeing the deer I think I should see. And you and I know we're not in farm country here. We're more in Missouri. We're more, if anything, agricultural. It's probably cattle farms, but lots of standing timber and lots of big, tall white oaks right around there where we're at. And if that's the case, they're not exposing themselves. There's no need to. And this kind of mirrors what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and as you, that the one farm that we both hunt there, that thing's notorious for filling up come the rut, especially once the crops come out. Unfortunately, right now they just have an absolute abundance of food. There's several springs, like you said, spring-fed creeks that run into the river that runs through there. And the terrible weather we've had, there's just, those deer, that's why they're tough to hunt. Those ridges and then, those saddles and those bowls that are out there with, the terrain change that we have out there, and just the abundance of food and water and cover that they have. They can be tough to hunt. It's not easy to get a deer down out there, but once those crops come out, it'll get a little easier, because like I said, they'll definitely be hitting that timber, and hitting those oak trees. And there's 2 real good oak flats, as on that farm that, that they'll start hitting pretty good once those crops come out.
I need to go look and see. I can get off in there a little bit without getting too far in and just see. I've looked at some of those white oaks around the edges. They didn't look like they were holding. You and I had talked about that before, but there's just something not quite right. I'm not getting even any does showing up in my food plot that I've got one of the cameras on. And then I've got one on a pretty good trail coming up out of the bottom, and I'm not getting many pictures on that. Matter of fact, to the point to where at one point I was wondering if the camera was even functioning. I'm like, I don't know, just something isn't right. because generally about, you said the rut, but generally about the 15th of October, I start getting all kinds of deer I've never seen before. And we're pushing in on that pretty quick.
Yeah, it is odd. I mean, because I hate to say it, the spot there on the back part of the farm where you got the majority of your cameras has been notorious, and especially even like early season. I mean, it seems like there's several bedding areas back there to where, the bucks tend to have in the past, they like to hang out. And then like we've talked about, they can go north or south and get to ag. They're not real close to it. So I will say that it's a little different for what you have going back there, because it's definitely, normally houses some pretty good bucks during the summertime, especially the growing season, when they're growing antlers and everything. And you just said you haven't seen too much back there, but I know this. This is probably as far as total in all three spots, because I got cell cams on all three farms now that I hunt out there. And I've located the Ole Man again, which I've sent you pictures, and we've all three, me, you, and Brian, both have verified that is 100% him.
Yeah. We've talked about him on the podcast before. He wouldn't score anything, but he is we're talking old warrior. We're guessing probably 10.
I would bet money he's at least double digits this year. Yes. I'm betting that deer don't have a tooth left in his head. And
no,
I assure you, for anyone that listens to the podcast, I'm sure you guys have heard us talk about that deer a few times. Brian Johnson is obsessed with that deer. Maybe even to the fact more than you and I are.
Yeah.
And if I don't care, either one of us gets that deer down, I will pay to have that tooth sent off. We are going to know that deer's age if he goes down this year.
We talked about it in the last podcast, but he was running with Beams, and Beams has been dead for 4 years. And I think he was a very mature deer at that point.
I would say he was easily 4 years old when Beams went down.
Yeah,
easily 4 years old.
Beams was on his decline, and I can't imagine an immature deer and a very mature deer running together. But summertime. Yeah, he's a beast. And I saw him on hoof last year, sitting out in front where you hunt. And when he come busting out of that brush, I mean, for a split second, I didn't know what was going on. And it happened so fast. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. But he come busting out of the brush, and he was chasing these 4 does that were out in the field, or, nudging them. And compared to those does, he looked like a Brahma bull. I mean, it looked like something I could saddle him right off into the sunset. It was crazy. And by the time I saw who it was and tried to figure it out, and I was like, oh God, it's him. And I got my scope up. He was in behind some brush. And then of course the doe spooked, and they bounded out of the field. And of course he went right in after him. And I was sitting there just praying to God, please come back out. Please come back out. And then I couldn't wait to get a hold of you to say he lives and I've seen him.
Yeah. Well, and that's the bad part. I think I talked to you I was in Indiana then, and I think I talked to you almost every night that week. And as soon as you called me every night, I was like, did you kill him?
Well, I killed one in Illinois last year, and it's just kind of a teaser. I put on Facebook. I come up on the first big pile of blood, and I took a picture of it and posted it on Facebook. I said something, going to be a good day. And Nathan's first reply was, God, please let it be the Old Man. Like wrong state, buddy.
That deer has just been, well, and I mean, this is to tell you that long ago. And I mean, the Missouri guys will be the only ones that are completely familiar with this. But, when that deer first started coming into maturity, we were still under the 4-point restriction.
Yeah.
This is before CWD and everything else. So that deer, the first couple of years when he was coming into his own, as a 3-year-old and things like that. I mean, he had a nice frame, but he's just always been a 6-pointer. I think a couple of years he grew like maybe a little sticker. Yeah.
We say,
but other than that,
of course, on the podcast you can't hear this, but if you watch the video on YouTube, he has probably when in his prime, his forks on the 6 were probably what, 14 inches long, the G2.
Every bit of it. Yeah, he was has a big frame. I mean, that deer, if he would have had any extra tines coming off of his main beams, I mean, he would have,
Yeah,
he'd have been right there with beams. I mean, he'd have been, 140, 50, 60-inch deer.
He is not a genetic specimen. He is just an old deer. And
Yes, he
there's not many deer that I would be thrilled to shoot a 6-pointer, but I'd shoot him. And you and I both discussed this along with Brian. There's been texts going around. He's on the decline. He's less than he was last year and considerably less than he was 2 years ago. But like we said, he is every bit of 8, probably closer to 10, like you said. So we'll see. We're both hunting him hard. You said you've just hunted the one time. I hunted once for a very short time in Illinois. It's just been stupid hot. I think they're talking, so we're recording this on, what is today, the 5th? So Wednesday the 5th, or Tuesday the 5th, and I think they're talking about Saturday getting close to 90 again. And I'm thinking, and I've seen years in past where we've already had frost by now.
Yeah. It's just, man, it's really rough right now. And I mean, you alluded to it already. And I said to you in my text earlier today, I legitimately was uncertain if my cell cameras were working for the better part of last week. I mean, that's how bad it was.
Yeah.
I did not get a picture. I bet not one single picture. I'm talking about not of a squirrel, not of a raccoon, not of anything for 4 to 5 days in a row. And that just doesn't happen.
Yeah. In years past, right about now, I've had to turn down like I always have it on a 20-second delay and a 3-shot burst. And in years past, I've been worried that I'm going to exceed my plan, and I've turned it down to like 2-shot burst on a 1-minute delay, just so, because I'd wake up every morning and there'd be 80 pictures. And yesterday I woke up and there was one, and it was of a coyote in the middle of the night. So,
Of course,
just not much going on.
Mm-hmm.
What are your plans? Are you going to Indiana this year?
I was going to, but some projects at the house have gotten a little more costly than what I'd like. So that's kind of putting the kibosh on my Indiana plans. I am still headed to Illinois that second week of November. And me and a couple of buddies got drawn for Rockwood's, one of the Missouri Department of Conservation managed hunts on a conservation area, which you've heard me talk about on the podcast before as well.
You were in there 2 years ago, weren't you?
Yeah, I had an encounter with easily 100 and late 150s, early 160s deer, and he caught me just as I got in the stand and my bow was at the bottom of the tree. So I'm really hoping to, I'm going to be November 1st, I'm going to be in that very same area, and hoping to, if he lived through last year, have a run-in with him again.
How long is that tag good for?
That's actually why I put in for it. There are some hunts around here that are, in a little bit better areas, have some bigger deer, but this goes the whole month of November.
Oh, that's a good
one. Yeah, you're not relegated to a few days, to where, like right now, I mean, if your hunt was over this weekend, I mean, deer were virtually, didn't move, period. And, you're just not relegated to that. You're not hunting, for just 2 or 3 days or whatever. You have the whole month of November. The draw odds are a little less because, of course, it's the rut, but I've gotten drawn 2 of the last 3 years out of it. So it's, and there's good deer out there. A guy showed me a picture he killed 4 or 5 years ago of I think a 173, he said it was a dandy. I had an encounter with, like I said, that he was pushing that 160 mark. So there's some good deer out there for sure.
Me and I think Jason LaPlante.
Yes.
And then Big Bob, who is another buddy of mine. We were drawn for the late season hunt at Bush, and it's a month long. And the reason we kind of went on that was that we just never anymore. We don't have a chance to all get together and hunt, and it was more of a that was more of a time when we could all do it together. And besides that, the last couple of years out where we hunt, when the rut ends, I haven't seen crap. And so I really kind of wanted something different. So we've got from December 15th to January 15th at Bush. So we'll see what happens.
Nice, nice. That should be, well, that's one of the areas that I was talking about. I mean, there's, Bush is one of them. What's the other one right up there? Weldon.
Weldon. Yeah, for
There.
people who don't know, just north of St. Louis. And when I say it used to be on the outskirts of St. Louis suburbs, now it's right in the middle of the St. Louis suburbs. So it's right on the Missouri River, and Bush Wildlife and Weldon Springs. And I don't know, it's probably, what do you think? 30,000 acres there?
Oh, I'd say there's a bunch. And Weldon's real big, and I know Bush is even bigger than that.
And then just on the other side of the river is Howe Island, which is a huge public piece of ground.
And Howe Island is well known for, it's tough to hunt. It's thicker than, I mean, man, oh man, it's rough to hunt. A lot of people do hunt it, but there is big deer in that area. There's no doubt about it.
I have been in there when the sun's gone down, and it's river bottom, and it's tough to get lost in Missouri, but you could get lost on that island. And it's about, I think it's about 5 miles long and about probably 3/4 of a mile wide. You could walk eventually and find your way out, but you'd have to find a river or the slough on one side or the other.
Yeah, and there's quite a few places. Well, the river you don't want to find, and the slough, there's only a couple spots where you're going to want to mess with that in any way, shape, or form either.
Yeah, it's different. You and I grew up in hill country, and everything's got a look to it. You can pretty much find your way out of anything. It's not like we're hunting in the mountains where you're going to get lost. You're going to stagger across the field or something eventually, but you get turned around on Bush on Howe Island in a hurry, because it's just sycamores and cottonwoods and flat as a tabletop, and everything looks the same and just woolly as hell.
They produce some big deer.
What'd you say? I'm sorry, cut out.
I said they produce some big deer. There is some dandies been killed out there.
Jason LaPlante, who was my college roommate, he's been on the podcast before, but he killed one that was like 149 off that island one time. Now the problem is, you shoot one in there, and you got to get it out by hand.
And I know a lot of public ground in a lot of states is like that, but there are, in Missouri is just like the rest of them. Any public ground in Missouri, there are no motorized vehicles at all. It don't matter what it is allowed on it. So your best bet with that is a boat.
Yes,
you can do
get
a boat.
to the edge and get it around. Trying to think of some other things we were talking about, and what kind of gear are you using to hunt with this year? What are you shooting for bow? We could stir up a real hornet's nest by asking what kind of broadheads you're using, but what do you got going on? I know you got a new setup and you're really excited about it.
I do. I'm, for the longest time, and I still am. I'm a budget hunter. I've got a certain budget I've got to deal with and everything else. So I've never owned any of these big companies' flagship bows. I shot a Diamond for quite a few years. I shot one of Bear's budget, one of their ready to hunt packages for a long time when I was younger. But this year I finally said, I'm going to go out and do it. And I went out and bought the brand new V331, and outfitted that thing whole out from start to finish. And, I know what the hype is about now, for flagship bows. I will say that now.
Smooth, is it?
Oh man. Now granted, I did a lot of research before I did it, and all the research I've done, a lot of the big bow companies, their flagship bows, apparently they all knocked it out of the park this year. There is some good bows to choose from, some good technology to choose from, but being my first experience in the flagship bow market, I do not regret buying that Matthews, man. That thing is smooth. There's no hand vibration. I mean, even if you're off, you make a mistake, it's just not anywhere near what it used to be. It's kind of, and you feel it after you shoot so much, you feel, you pull a little bit, or you twitch, or you don't follow through like you're supposed to. And, the big axle to axle, and the next to nothing for vibration, especially once you get all your dampeners on there and everything.
What is it,
just,
axle? 34?
No, this is the 31.
Oh,
But
31.
but the riser is actually the
That's what I was gonna say.
longest riser they've had on it.
What's the brace height? Probably 6.5.
I think it's 6.75. It is 6.5. You're right. It is 6.5.
Well, shorter bow, but a little bit bigger brace height. You can hold that steady.
Well, and they did this year what they call pass parallel limbs, which when it's all the way drawn back, the actual where the cams are tied in are actually below the pockets there where it goes into the riser. So the riser is extremely long for a 31-inch bow, which makes it react and more forgiving, kind of like a target bow with that real long riser. So and it definitely is. I mean, I normally through the summer, I practice out to 60, 70, even 80 yards sometimes, man. And I've been amazed, man. You can stack them in there with this thing.
What are you shooting for arrows?
I actually went out and I built my own arrows this year. I bought the Black Eagle Deep Impacts. I will say my goal was to go a little heavier than I've been going.
Yeah.
I got heavier than I wanted to. I'm shooting about 507 grains. 500. They're all between 507, 508. At Bow's still flinging them out there pretty good. I'm not a whole lot different from where I was, but I'm shooting 75 pounds this year as opposed to the 70 at 28.5-inch draw. So it does all right with them. I wouldn't want to get out to,
but you've
too
got
far
that
with them.
now. You're shooting at a heavier arrow. You've got that ass behind it. So.
And that was the point. I wanted to be in that 450 to 475 range, ideally. But again, and this is without lighted nocks as well. I was gonna jump up my my broadhead to 125s as well. But if I would have done both, like if I had just went with the lighted nock, I would have had to put 125s on front, and I would have been like 540, 550. And that's getting a little too heavy, a little too slow for my liking.
It'd be like shooting a bow 25 years ago. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
True. Yeah.
We thought we were slinging them back then.
A second. Yeah.
Put you an overdraw.
Exactly.
You'll be fine.
Right. Yeah. Put the overdraw on it. I had one of those back in the day, by the way.
It runs in cycles, man. It's either speed or it's all about knockdown power, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Freaking bolts like a crossbow.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I've been for the last few years, and man, I've had some real good luck with them. I'm running those G5 Montex.
It's a fixed blade, right?
Yep, fixed blade, poured one. They make a cast and they just pour steel in it, and it's all one piece. There's not blades to it or anything. All one piece, all 100% steel. And I'm actually shooting. I bought 2 packages the last 2 years, and I've killed, golly, I think 6 or 7 deer the last 2 years with it. And I went out and bought a diamond sharpening stone. I sharpened them things back up this year, and they're as sharp as they were when they came out of the package. So I haven't had to buy a new set since. Yep.
It's a good deal. Well, I'll stir up a hornet's nest. Well, I won't get into that yet, but so for the TV show for the last few years, I've been shooting a Matthews, and I know you love yours. I shoot left-handed, and I just never could really. It just wasn't a bow that I loved. I was shooting that Halon 6, and so this year I sold it, and I found some guy that was left-hander that wanted it, which is not always an easy thing to do. I've got a back room here that shows that I can't get rid of bows very easy because nobody wants a left-handed bow. But I've always been a big guy. Me and Brian have always been big into Hoyt. So this year I decided we weren't sponsored by a bow company. And so I said, I'm getting what I want this year. So I went out and bought the Hoyt Venom 30-inch, and I love it. I haven't shot it enough yet. I've been lazy, but it's driving tacks. I've got it dialed into 50 yards, and I wouldn't be scared. I've got one of the HHA adjustable sights. I wouldn't be scared to crank it out to 70 at a doe or something. And here's where we'll throw up the hornet's nest. I shoot rage. I like the way they fly.
Oh boy. Oh boy, here we go.
I've never, knock on wood, I have never shot at a deer with a rage that I didn't find. Now, my partner Brian would like to beat my head in the dirt because I put rage on his because we've been on a killing spree, and I said, he was like, I'm out of broadheads, and I'm like, well, I got some rage in here, and I screwed a couple on, and we shot him. He's like, yeah, I like the way they fly. And he went out, and 45 minutes later, he shot a deer at like 8 yards, and it went about 3 inches into it. And he called me, and he's like, I may shoot you. I may shoot you.
And Todd, I believe you were with me.
Yes.
The night I decided to switch away from, and I won't go into the broadhead that I was shooting at that particular point in time. But I was shooting an expandable, had decent luck with it, but had 1 or 2 deer that I was unable to find with them. And on this particular deer, the deer came in perfectly broadside at first. I stopped her as a doe. I stopped her, and she took like, 1 step towards me. So, and looking, and she was quartering to me a little bit when I shot. So I hugged it as tight as I could to that shoulder. And I mean, I buried it, and it sounded like that thing hit a brick wall, but it blew through her. I mean, it blew all the way through her, and it stuck in the ground on the other side. And she ran off carrying that front leg. She never put it on the ground. You remember we went and found 1 good spot of blood afterwards. But when I found the arrow buried in the ground, it had no blood on it. It had that, light brown colored, and it smelled like guts. And, she was quartering too. I'll give you that, but she was not quartering hard. And that thing, again, I can only speculate, but that arrow, for whatever reason, came out way far back, and it had some sort of deflection, whether it was, one of the blades not opening up, causing it to wiggle a little bit, the trajectory to change once it hit that front shoulder, or it just flat out deflected. It got that much of that front shoulder and deflected back that far, but it came out way back. And it was hot as all get out that night. We started
right this time of year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we started going through the woods, and we saw a set of eyeballs.
Yeah.
So we kind of stopped for a minute.
I remember that. I kept saying, what am I looking at right there? Because I had my glasses on. You're like, something's looking at us.
Yeah. And we didn't find much blood past that 1 big pile right there. And, all of a sudden those set of eyes disappeared, but we didn't hear anything take off. So we thought maybe, she might have just expired right there. And sure enough, we went ahead and walked up to that spot, which was my mistake. You seen my eyeballs, we should have probably, but it was hot.
Yeah.
And it was a doe. So we were trying to find
it. Wouldn't have been there next morning. Or if it had been,
you can't leave a deer lay overnight this time of year. So, the pressure was on to find her, because we don't like wasting any meat. We all, we eat a lot of deer meat, and my family eats a lot of deer meat, and we make use of every bit of it we can. And she turned around, hopped that fence, and she hit the road, and we never did find another speck of blood past that. And we never recovered that deer.
Here's the problem with where you hunt right there, is if they get across that road, which from where you were sitting is maybe 80 yards, 100 yards?
At most, yes.
If they cross that road, it's about 1,000 foot straight down to the river. There's just no finding it.
Yep. Yeah, and that was it for me. I had shot a doe the year prior, and I mean, to all my knowledge, I mean, I hammered that deer. I found a lot of blood, and it just went on forever and ever and ever. And never did recover that deer. And I didn't never found the arrow. So I mean, I couldn't verify, exactly where it hit or anything else. And I don't know, there was too much, and I have not had an issue out of these broadheads to this point since I've switched to them. So
what kind of fight you get out of them?
they're actually really good. When I on this particular bow, after sighting it in and everything, I think I was hitting at 30 yards. I think I was hitting about, maybe an inch and a half to the left.
Is there a lot of tuning with them, or is it, once you dial the bow in, it's pretty well?
No, yeah, it was pretty, and that's the thing too. That bow was, so close to paper tuned. As soon as I got it, it just wasn't even funny. It was so easy to get going to where, I'm moving pins and, trying to figure out yardage and stuff. The flight of the arrow was real good. And again, like I said, the broadheads were, I probably could have got by with it, but I like making sure them things are hitting where I got that pin.
Well,
so
I've shot a little bit of everything. Used to buy it. I don't know if you remember these. Used to buy those old, they called them Trilocks. They were like Thunderhead knockoffs.
Yeah,
that's going back a long time. It's because I couldn't afford the Thunderheads.
That's right.
And then I shot slick tricks for a long time, and I've shot some cheapies you get at Walmart. And I don't know. Probably the last 12 years I've been shooting these Rage. Not, like I said, knock on wood, I haven't had any problems with them. I don't get crazy with them. I wouldn't want to sling it through, I wouldn't want to chance one to try to feather it through some brush or something, because I think if you got a poor angle, it's probably not a good idea either. But for the most part, I've always had good luck with them. But to each his own. And if you want to start a war, go put something on Facebook about mechanicals are the best thing going, and then just sit down and watch the words fly.
Yeah, there's some guys that are pretty, especially, and I don't know, it seems to be Rage. Rage takes a lot of heat for the expandable market, and they are. Just for my personal preference, I think my fixed heads, I think there's 1.25 inches, maybe 1.125 inches cut. They're very. I don't even know how to put a very dramatic broadhead. They like to go there. There's a couple of them that might be, they look like them freaking broadheads that are supposed to cut the turkey's heads off. What are they called?
Swackers or
Yeah. They got about three inches of blade sticking out.
I think the ones I'm shooting back there have a 2 and maybe, I don't know. I think they're every bit of 2 inch, maybe 2.25 inch cut.
Yeah. That's just, I don't know. I'm like I said, I'm trying to make full pass through. I've there's been quite a bit of research done on as far as if you get a full pass through, the recoverability, your recovery rate goes up drastically, and that much surface area going through a deer kind of makes me a little nervous. But again, if that's your choice and you've had success with it, I would stick with it myself, but they just make me a little nervous.
I can see that. And like I said, that day, Brian had like 150 inch literally walk underneath him, and he'd been there like 10 minutes. And I don't know, he could tell the story better, but I've heard it 1,000 times. He was only able to get about 12 foot in this tree with his climber, and this thing literally walked on the path underneath him. And he goes, it was on top of me before I knew what to do. And he literally shot straight down, and he said it went in about 2 inches, and the thing rolled over on his back and like looked up at him, and Brian was trying to knock another arrow on him. He's like, oh, he's dead. And about that time, he like popped two, jumped up, and ran out of the county like his ass was on fire. And Brian was just like, what the F just happened? And we looked, we got access on the farm next to it. It wasn't on that farm either.
If I'd have had a story like that, if that Rage would have cost me 150 inch deer, I'd probably be one of them people talking pretty bad about it on Facebook as well.
He was, now granted, he didn't have a sharp broadhead in his box. So I gave him some so we could avoid having to make the 45-minute drive to get some. But he was furious with me last night. He's like, I don't know why you shoot this junk. You're an idiot. And we go back and forth anyway. You've heard us. And I'm like, I never have any problems with him. And he's like, no, you don't get it, man. I lost a buck deer, a huge buck deer. He goes, I could have shot a freaking field point in that far.
He should have been dead. Absolutely. Oh my goodness.
And then I told him before, because I've seen him chase deer through the woods with a knife. I was like, why didn't you just jump on it, knife it?
That freaking turkey story from last year was hilarious as well. Him chasing that turkey down, man. Golly. He's a riot.
I saw him picking on him when he's not here, but I saw him about 5 years ago on this farm he hunts. And he shot this like triple beard, huge turkey. And it was the first year we were filming for the TV show, and I'm zooming in and he runs out there and it's kind of flopping around. And then he proceeds to just flog the living hell out of him. I mean, just beat the tar out of him. And I'm laughing and zooming in and zooming out. And he keeps looking up. And he's like, a little help. And I just keep sticking my thumb out the window. I'm like, you're doing great, buddy.
You're doing a great job. This is great footage, by the way, Brian.
So he finally just laid on it, trying to get a hold of its neck. And I was like, and he come back and it had spurred the hell out of him and ripped his pants. And I was like, that's awesome.
Oh my gosh, that is funny. Yeah, hey, tell you what, them suckers can be a handful to hold on to, even when they're pretty well dead. Them suckers are a handful to hold on to for sure.
I'm not really wanting to stick unless I have to, like chasing them out. If I can get over and get my boot on their neck, I'm in good shape.
Hey, listen, I did that to one, and he literally jumped forward right then, and I skinned every feather on that turkey's back off of it completely. That turkey did not have a feather left on its back at all.
Well, we're going to wrap this up in a minute. It's getting late and I just want to get on here, but let me ask you something else, because you're the one that got me into this. I'm excited to try it. Last year was the first year you did it. I know before, when I'd hear this on a podcast, I just completely lose interest, but I am all in on the saddle hunt now. And you hunted for it last year for the first time. What do you think?
And listen, it took me several years. I was definitely skeptical for quite some time with it. But I finally decided, because I had stands and sticks in my garage coming out the wazoo. My wife was about ready to kill me for all the stands that I had and everything else, but so I sold a couple of my decent stands, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try this thing out and see what happens. And I'm hooked, man. And like I explained to you when I talked to you about it, it's not the comfort of a climber, but it is more comfortable than a portable. But you have the accessibility of a portable and sticks and everything else. And then the shooting radius that you have, because I've been burnt there before too, portable, about not being able to get around the backside of the tree. With a saddle, it takes care of that problem. You have that same issue with a climber as well.
Yeah.
I love the comfort of a climber. You can climb up there and take a nap, but I don't go get in the woods to go take a nap. It's nice every now and then, but if I'm going to do something like that, a climber where I'm trying to take it in and do a hanging hunt, getting in their bedroom, I don't plan on taking a nap. So
it's also, I don't know about you, but the climber I've got, and I like it, it's comfortable. It weighs about as much as and it's aluminum, but it weighs about as much as a small Buick. And they're noisy. I don't care how quiet you're trying to be. You're noisy going up a tree.
Well, and you got to, and like me and you, neither one of us are small guys. We're both 200 plus pounds.
Easy.
And you got to have right. You got to have a tree that does not have a limb, up to wherever you're trying to get. And then you got this, this blob of a human sitting on the side of a tree where there ain't nothing else normal. In my opinion, sticking out like a sore thumb. I just, the comfort is there. The shooting range, all the way around. if you watch what you're doing and watch several videos, you can shoot 360 degrees around the tree, which you cannot do with any stand. I don't care what you're in with a bow. And you're not going to sit in one position all day, but you can sit all day in a saddle. And I know this is one of those things that, I hate to say it, saddle hunters tend to take as much punishment as you rage fellers do on social media. Everybody likes to poke fun at them. I have buddies sending me cute little memes that I won't describe, saying what saddle hunters are and how they hunt. A lot of people a lot of married couples, may hang something up like that in their bedroom. I'll say that. But yeah, I get teased like that all the time. But again, just the whole entire package, the flexibility of it, the comfort, the whole entire thing. I believe the saddle is far and above the others.
I think, not to cut you off, but I think, and you and I aren't in this situation because luckily for the most part, we've got private farms to hunt. I know certainly I haven't. I don't take it to the extreme like some of these guys where they're just cutting weight as much as they can. I'm not planning on packing in 4 miles. It's just, I don't have that. Luckily, I have places I can hunt where I don't have to hunt public property. There are some great, like when I go to Bush this year, I'm going to take this in but the weight isn't as big an issue to me as just accessibility, I guess. Where I hunt in Illinois, there just aren't a lot of trees. We hunt a lot of ditches. These guys are about farming. They're not about having a bunch of standing timber. So they knock down as much as they can. And it's got to where anymore, it's just tough to find trees to hunt. Well, this is going to open up some new places for me to get into. I've practiced with it in the backyard in the woods back there. I like it. We'll see how comfortable it is. Like I said, I haven't sat for like 4 or 5 hours. It's been a long time since if I'm going to sit all day somewhere, it's going to be on the farm you and I hunt, and I'm going to sit in a box blind.
Right.
But I think, a good 4 hours in the morning or 4 hours in the afternoon in that thing, it should be all right. Now, like I said earlier, I used to listen to like Mark Kenyon and some of these guys talk about these saddles. And when I'd see that was what the episode was about, I'd turn it off. I was just like, oh God, this sounds awful. And then I talked to a guy last year on the podcast, Greg Staggs, and he said, he was telling me about it. And it sounded interesting. And then you bought one last year and you're like, man, you need to look at this. Because seriously, on that farm we hunt, it's 146 acres.
Yep.
We've got there's probably 10 stands littered across that thing over the years that we either don't hunt anymore. Hell, there's 2 of them I can see from my food plot that I haven't been in 10 years.
Right.
So, I'm almost 50 years old. It's hard to get portable stands in and out anymore. It's a lot of work. Besides that, if you're going into a place like, if you go to Illinois or if you're on like a 5-day hunt, you could spend a day blowing the place up just trying to get stands on. I'm excited about it. We'll see what happens. Brian tells me, and I know this is true. I buy every gadget that comes down the line and think it's going to change the world, but I seriously like this one. I stopped by your house one day and you were showing me all about it, and listened to a bunch of podcasts. And then I bought it and I was like, this is all right. And then I got real deep into it and I was like, you told me like, get that stealth tape and make it really quiet. And hell, I don't know if my sticks are laying here right here beside me. I've got those things all taped up. And my wife's like, what are you doing? I'm like, this is awesome.
You had to whisper it, didn't you?
Yes.
Because you were being quiet.
Oh, she knew what I paid for real stuff. We'd be divorced years ago.
Yeah. I'm kind of in that same boat, but that's my thing is, I just went and hung, and this is a comfortable portable stand, but I went and hung a set last week, and not this past one, but the one before that. It's a great stand, big platform, big comfortable seat and everything. And I ain't kidding you, that thing about killed me get up in that tree, and I'm out there by myself. Something happens to me, something goofy happens, and I'm gonna be in trouble.
Yeah.
That little platform that you have to put up for them sticks and everything else. You have everything, and that's my thing. I'm probably not probably. I'm not as safe as I should be on the portable stands and everything else. That is the other thing I told you that I really like about the saddle is in order to saddle hunt, you have to use all of the safety equipment necessary in order to keep you safe from top to bottom on your climb up and down.
Unless you're just careless, you're tethered off to the tree the whole time.
And you should be. And that's my thing is typically I carry a tether with me once I get in the portable, once I'm in the stand,
Yeah.
But I mean, that only covers you from basically if you fall asleep and lean over and fall out of the tree.
Well, I bet you 90% of them falls happen going in and out of the stand.
It does. And listen, there was one year that I was up in a tree and it started mist and raining right before dark. Well, then it started sleeting. And by the time I got down, those steps were nothing but a solid sheet of ice. God. And it took everything I had to get out of that tree. I mean, it was terrible.
I know Brian and I had a stand that we had hung years ago in Illinois. And I don't know, I guess the steps maybe grow apart. And besides that, I'm not 20 years old anymore. When we first started hunting over there, we were 26 and we just climb up like monkeys up in these things. And this was before I had my double hip replacement, but my hips, I sat in that thing for like 5 hours one morning. And when I got down, I was so stiff, I couldn't get from one step to another. And this stand was up there. Brian hung it. He likes to hang them treetop high. It was probably 27 foot up. Oh I ended up having to bear hug this tree and slide to the next step. And by the time I got down, I had worked myself into a pretty good lather. I mean, I was scared, and I'm not scared of heights, but I was like, we're done with that. We're not going back up that tree anymore.
Right. And like I said, that's my, just the versatility of it, the ease of bringing it in and out. And then again, like we just talked about, the safety aspect of it, because, you should have your lineman's rope and your tether. And when you actually make the transition onto, and again, guys, there's a jillion videos out there about this now, anybody watching, you're interested in it. When you make that transition from your sticks onto your platform, you should be hooked into both. You should be hooked into your tether and your lineman's rope. So that way you are never disconnected from the tree. It's easy to do. You have pouches. So once you get the tether, you can keep both of them on until you get to your desired, height of your tether above you, and make sure it holds. And then you take your lineman's off. You are never disconnected from the tree. And I mean, I've been lucky. I have never knock on wood here, had a tree stand accident. I've been close, but you do this saddle hunting right, you have no reason to flat out fall out of a tree. You really don't.
What do you do when you come to branches? Do you take the lineman's rope off to get around them, or?
Well, see, that's the other thing. If you want, I mean, because again, you still have the tether right there in your pouches. What you can do is just throw the tether over the top and then take your lineman's rope off, and then you can just switch them back and forth as you're going up the tree.
Yep. What about, and I know some of this stuff because I've played around with it, but just for people who don't know, is it hard to be organized when you get up there? You're facing the tree. It's not like what do? You put a couple spikes in the tree, or what are you doing there?
I mean, typically I'll have, actually, I just bought it. They have these accessory hangers that go around it, that just go all the way around the tree. And typically, in a lot of these guys, I've watched, because you'll have a system together, and that's how you'll kind of pack, either put it in the pouches of your saddle, or you have it in your pack as it comes out. And what a lot of people do, they'll get up, have your backpack on, they'll take it off, set it right in front of them in between their feet, and they'll grab that accessory hook, flip it around the tree, get that hung, and then they'll hang their bag right there in front of them. So that way you have everything sitting right there in front of you. You got your tether on, you just start hanging stuff, you pull your bow up, set it off here to your right or left side, for you, and then just, kind of hang your stuff, and then you can take your bag. And a lot of guys use their bag for their knee pad. They'll put a pad inside of it, drop that bag down on the excess for the strap that you have around the tree, tie it to that, and you use your bag and those pads for your knee pads up against the tree.
So you sent me pictures last year. I know that 3-year-old bedded down underneath you. You were in its saddle that day, right?
Yes.
And I've seen pictures. He was close. He had no idea you were there. What did he?
He walked 5 yards underneath the tree, bedded at 15, and then got up, and yeah, he never had a clue.
He laid there for like 2 hours too, didn't he?
No, it was like 5.
God.
This was 7 o'clock in the morning, and he didn't get up till 12. Because again, I didn't want to move. Again, they're comfortable, but they're not sitting one spot for 5 hours comfortable. I mean, it's that was a little rough. I was ready just to start throwing rocks at him or something just to get him to get up and get away from me. But
Well, yeah. I'm excited to give it a try. Like I said, I didn't use it the other day when I hunted, but we'll see what happens. I've got that mobile hunt where I'm gonna have to hang and hunt when I'm at bush, and I'm guessing you're gonna use yours at out there at Westwood, or what is it, 44?
Rockwood's range.
Rockwood.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see what happens. Like I said, I was not a fan. I was actually, they kind of irritated me. I was like, it's just another gimmick. Looks like, and I think they were developed by guys that were like, like loggers and stuff. But when you actually get into them, and you kind of got to play with it, like you were telling me, I get into it, and they sit up like, it's not really something that you want just directly around your waist. When I get up and get sit down, I kind of slide it down onto my butt a little bit and loosen up the leg portion of it a little bit. I mean, you're not going to fall, but you don't want it just sitting right up. I don't. It depends on how everybody wants it, but so that my weight's more on my butt than on my lower back.
Well, and I think your hips have a little to do with that too. If you let that thing ride up too far, you get that hip pinch that they talk about.
Yeah, and my hips are good now, except from years of walking like a gimp, I do have a little issue with my sciatic nerve from time to time, and it puts pressure right there on the outside of your hip, like just below your butt. And if you can move that around a little bit, and you were showing me, and you can adjust your bridge, and it kind of, like you were saying, you can stand for a little while, you can sit for a little while, you can sit side saddle. You were talking about a deer that comes in behind you. 3 years ago, I was in Illinois. Had a good buck, probably 135. I would have definitely shot him. Come in behind me, and he came in. If I'm facing the tree behind me, he would have come in on my left-hand side. Was a left-handed bow hunter. I couldn't get around the tree on that side, so I needed him to clear the tree on my right side so he could get there. Well, just as he got to, he was 10 yards away. He stopped and he smelled where I walked in, and he froze. And then he wasn't sure what. He stood there for 3 or 4 minutes, but he wouldn't come any farther, and I couldn't do anything. I could have freaking thrown the arrow at and hit him, but I could not get around that tree. And it was one of those things. I was like, like I said, it probably took 4 minutes. Seemed like he stood there for 45 minutes, I guess, thinking just 3 more steps and you die, but he wouldn't come in. And then he finally, you know how they are, they boogered out. He ran back about 50 yards and stood there and stared. But by that time, I was screwed. I just remember thinking, there's got to be a better way.
Well, and everybody knows, and especially all of us bow hunters. And I know everybody. We don't. We both take guns out. I'm not exclusive. I typically now take my boy and George's grandson out. I don't do too much of it anymore. But as bow hunters, we put so much time, effort, and energy into hanging stands, scouting, food plots, because we got to get these deer within 40 yards of us. And there's not a more frustrating feeling in the world when you're in that setup, and everything works out, but they come in where you don't have that one lane trimmed. Yep. Or they come in to where, you're in the back of the tree, like you're talking about it, even on a lane trim, when you're in a portable stand, you're basically in that one spot. You can lean a little bit, but if you get too far out of your bow position, you're not going to be real accurate. And with that saddle, you have so much maneuverability to change your angle from where you're going. Sometimes you don't have to trim so many shooting lanes and open things up so more. It just, like I said, there's not a more frustrating feeling in the world than getting that buck you've been after within that 35 to 40 yards of you and not being able to get a shot at him.
Exactly. And as well as I do, that you can spend hours sitting in the tree. Every year, it seems like as I get older, I don't spend quite as much as I used to, but we probably each spend 100, 150 hours of a fall, and you may only get one shot. And when he comes in and you're just like, I'm screwed. I can't do anything. Or it dawns on you, the jig's up. He ain't coming no farther. Then it's just demoralizing. I mean, that night I just wanted to freaking throw that bow out of the tree, and it wasn't the bow's fault. I was in a much bigger tree than what I should have been in. If it'd been a little smaller, I could have leaned out a little bit, but and it kind of wide right behind me, which I thought was awesome because I could stack my crap up behind me. Hell, I was even trying to think about standing up in the seat to see if I could shoot through the Y, but didn't work out.
But see, that's the problem. I mean, and again, like you just said, as a bow hunter, I mean, and that's my big complaint with a climber, because you're so restricted on the trees that you can get in, and there's only so many trees, and you do all that scouting, you find out where deer are coming in and out and everything else. Well, if there ain't one of them perfectly straight up and down trees that are, basketball size or a little bit bigger that you can get it out of at 35 yards, 15 yards can put you out of the game in a climber.
Yeah.
That saddle, that platform and that saddle and some sticks, you can get up into just about any tree you want to get in.
If the tree will hold your weight, you can get in it.
Yep, absolutely.
You get a tree that's not going to bend over when you get up on top of it, you're fine. Now you may not be able to hide as easy, but and the other thing is you can get up in like these old hedge apples that are just nasty and gnarly, and you're like, how the hell first of all, you're not screwing a spike into a hedge apple. It's like screwing a spike into the concrete, and you're sure as hell not putting a freaking climber in one of those things. But you can get up in it with a saddle.
Yep, you can. Again, it opens up so many more possibilities. And again, I'm not saying I still own stands. Like you said, we have stands all over these farms. Our regular spots where we got our food plots, where we get, to where, the shots, exactly where the destination for the deer is. You don't necessarily have to have that maneuverability, but this is a seriously valuable tool to have in your arsenal for when you need to make adjustments and you need, you're seeing deer movement, 100 yards up the ridge, and you've seen it there for most of the morning, and you need to, I have it. If I don't plan on hunting in it that morning, it's in my truck, my sticks and my platform and my, saddle. And, I'll go get it and I'll make a move. I mean, just because
it's a hell of a lot easier to tear down and move it. I mean, some of these setups that you and I've got out at the farm we hunt, my God, there's the one that's at the other end of the farm from where you hunt. You've been in it, and that thing's the size of a car hood. And I put that up there when I was about 30 years old, and it's been hanging there for 20 years. And that damn thing I bet it weighed every bit of 60 pounds. Trying to get that thing up in that tree. And back then I didn't even have a harness on. I was just dangling from a tree with a cordless drill in one hand and a stand in the other.
Again, and you were, and I was too as well. I'll just say this to end it off for all you skeptics out there: don't knock it till you try it.
Yeah, Brian was skeptical, and I let him sit in mine. He goes, "It ain't bad." I was like, "Yeah." Now he didn't have one yet, but I bet you if I feel a big, if I drop a big one out of it this year, he'll have one next year.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Anyway, it's getting late in the night. I'm going to let you go. I got two things I want to say real quick. First, my buddy Steve Montgomery wanted me to give him a shout out. You got anything you want to say, Nathan?
No, just, man, I'm chomping at the bit, man. I'm ready to get at it. I need some northwest breeze coming, some cool fall air, and I am ready to get in a tree. And, for everybody that's got it done already, I've been seeing a bunch of pictures. Congratulations. And for all those who haven't, good luck and shoot straight, man.
That's right. The guys you work with, what you want to say where you work?
Yeah, I work for the sewer district in the city of St. Louis.
Yeah, some guys there listen, right? So
oh yeah, yep, absolutely. What's going on, fellas?
Give them something to rash about tomorrow. Last thing I want to say, it's October 5th. Tomorrow's the 6th. The Cardinals fell ass backwards into the playoffs by winning 17 games in a row, and let's just go kick the shit out of the Dodgers tomorrow.
Let's go Cards.
That's right. All right. Thanks for everybody tuning in. Nathan, I'll talk to you soon. Go kill the old man, and good luck to everybody.
All right. See you guys.
All right.